I want to talk a little bit about some tools that we can use to support our aids when we're riding our horses. And of course, the aids or the aid system in dressage always refers to leg aids, things that we do with our legs, seat aids that have to do with balancing the horse and how we distribute our weight on our seat bones, what we do with our shoulders, where we look even. The seat doesn't end just right where the shoulders are, but it also has to do with where your head is looking or tilting. All of that has an impact on the horse's weight perception and what it might mean potentially. And then, of course, we have the rein aids, which our hands are responsible for, and that we're using to guide the horse in terms of direction and also balance. And of course, always direction and speed, all those different things that the horse perceives as leadership qualities in us when we're riding him or her. And so I want to just talk briefly a little bit about the additional tools that we can use to enhance some of these aids that we're talking about. So you may see that I have spurs on, and I have them very low on my boot. They're sitting just above the heel, and I like it that way because then I'm sure that I only use them really when I want to and not inadvertently or accidentally or because of certain pre-programmed riding conditioning that I've experienced myself or that I've trained myself or got used to myself. So the spurs are just there to enhance the leg aids. Sometimes more than that, sometimes the seat aids, if the weight aids don't come through, they're really more like an exclamation point every once in a while. You just want to use them to emphasize something or when the horse doesn't quite understand what you're trying to communicate. And of course, the spurs and wearing spurs requires that you have learned how to keep your toes forward and your heels fairly low, at least, parallel. The sole of the shoe should be parallel to the ground. Sometimes when your leg goes back a little bit, your heels will come up, and that's okay, as long as you don't turn your toes out, because that would, of course, cause the horse to feel the spur and the impact. Um, and that's not what we want. We want it just to be ever so slight, little touch, little ding, as if you're saying, hello, listen. And the same thing with the whips. I like to ride with two whips, one in each hand, because I like to sometimes let the horse know that when I put my legs on, vibrationally mostly, different frequencies, different left, right in the walk, together simultaneously in the trot, and then of course in the canter, inside leg is the dominant driving leg, while the outside leg is the supporting holding leg. I like to sometimes tell the horse, again, like as if I say, you're already doing great, but I would like a little bit more with my whips. And what I will do is I'll just, if I have my hands in riding, working position, then I might, if I'm in shoulder to shoulder mode in the walk, I follow the shoulders as I'm doing now when she's not trotting. So now I'm in sync with the shoulders, and I may position my whips so that they're slightly, ever so slightly touching the horse underneath her hip bone on her flanks, on her haunches. And depending on if she's taking that a little bit too seriously almost, I don't need that with this horse. So I'm going to go back to long rein for a moment here. But with certain horses and in certain situations, it's a really nice thing to have, or you can keep the whips on the horse's flank for any length of time, sometimes just to say, hey, this back here is the part that I need you to activate more. The haunches are always the motor in the horse's movement process. And when we put the legs on, sometimes we don't find the right tone, so to speak, with our leg aids. And some horses are too sensitive and may either go too much forward, or they may misunderstand the leg as only a forward aid, whereas at some point, sometimes we want to teach them and tell them that it's a lateral signal also. And when you use it together, for example, in the shoulder in, and I'll just do a little bit of it here, gathering my reins a little bit. But it's an easy thing to see when you have a horse that's not totally, familiar with the concept of the shoulder in. I'm gonna go shoulder to shoulder, get her a little bit to go a little bit on an angle, and now right leg is vibrating. I sit a little bit to the outside, and every time my right shoulder goes back, the right whip goes on, like a little double ding ding bump with a whip. There you go. Then we straighten again, and then we go around the corner here, and then I'm going to give her a long rein again. And that's just to demonstrate how that could work. And of course, riding with 2 whips then means I don't have to change back and forth if I only have 1 whip in my hand. And these things are, of course, always useful to, like I said, to enhance, never to punish, really. If there's a misunderstanding or sort of a unclear communication going on between horse and rider, it is my job as a rider to figure out another peaceful way to illustrate to the horse and make it more clear to the horse what I want from him or her. And it's one of those things where, unless there's a really very rare situation where a horse might be overly dominant and might test my boundaries, where I will maybe use the whip with a quick snap and say no to something. But that's very, very rare. If you set up your riding and your communications step by step and break it down into enough slow and small steps, usually that's not really coming up. And so spurs and whips, as I said, are exclamation points behind our aids. And in that respect, friendly sort of tools that the horse should never be scared of and that you should be comfortable using when you need to. All right.